we'll get started. We're here today to talk about 1961's The Children's Hour. And I wanted to go around first and see who you are, introduce yourself, and also tell us your relationship to The Children's Hour. I can start in that I had no relationship to The Children's Hour. I hadn't even heard of it. But now having dug deep, and it's a really intriguing story, but I was new to it. I think I'd heard of the director, William Wyler, which we'll talk about in a second too. But yeah, I came in totally fresh, and I will hand it over to Jeremy.
Hi there. I'm Jeremy. I am Jackie's husband, Sarah and Kyle's friend. Nice to meet you, Kristen. I also had zero knowledge of this movie. I was interested in that I believe Audrey Hepburn is fairly important to Jackie. We have a bunch of her records at any rate. Yeah, I mean, had no idea what to expect going in. The posters were even very nebulous and kind of didn't give up much. So yeah, very fresh on this movie. Oh, I am confusing her with Judy Garland. You're right. You know what I'm thinking of, babe? Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Yeah.
The Moon River song was going to be our first dance for a minute. Which I don't know, like how
I'm glad it wasn't.
Yeah, no, we did the right thing, but I still love that.
We did Fade Into You by Mazzy Star instead.
That was way better.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I'm also I came in with no knowledge about this movie at all.
Cool. How about Sarah?
I saw this as a duet piece in speech when I was a teenager. There was a year that there was a really good team. And they must have been in our region or something, because I feel like my partner, who was Amy Ulch, and I saw it like a zillion times. And I feel like they did a couple different excerpts from it, but mainly it was that final scene between the two women. And I remember that one of them could make herself cry, and we were always so annoyed by them because I feel like they would always make finals just because that girl could make herself cry. So we were always like a little bitter about it. But I remember, of course, because I saw it so many times, I remembered the name of the play and that it was by Lillian Hellman, and but and kind of the main final scene I had seen acted out, but that was all I knew about it. I hadn't seen any of the lead up, which actually ended up being, I thought, way more interesting even than the final scene.
Cool. How about Kristen?
I'm Sarah's cousin. I've met all of you except for Jeremy, but I've heard a lot about you.
All good things, I'm sure.
Wonderful things, yes. Pickleball things. So I can't remember when I first saw this movie. I've only seen it once before. I watched it this morning. I'm like, oh, I'm actually free. I'm going to join. Probably Steph, but it's been a long time. So I feel like I've had a really different take this time around, just like how wow it was for its time, that I ended up watching like the little YouTube afterward about like the making of the film and how controversial it was and how many like, I guess, acquiesces the director had to do, and how it was really hard on the lead actresses. So I thought it was super interesting to watch again.
Cool. And I was gonna say, I forgot to add, Sarah will agree too. I was familiar really with two of the younger actresses in there in different ways. One, obviously Shirley MacLaine, Steel Magnolia's fame, was my reference, and then also Veronica Cartwright, who was one of the really little girls, was Cassandra Spender on X-Files, which was crazy to see, as she was always an old lady, and then here she is as like a wild, less young kid. So let's jump in. Cool. Just a few facts to kind of set things up. I had no idea that this was the second movie version of this story, which was kind of crazy. So like it was initially released as a movie called The Children's Hour, but also called The Loudest Whisper in the UK. This is the 1961 version. It's based on a screenplay, a screenplay by John Michael Hayes, based on the 1934 play of the same name by Lillian Hellman. And the play was the true story of two Scottish school teachers in 1810, whose lives were destroyed when their students accused them of just a sexual relationship. They won the suit, but it didn't change the devastation wreaked on their lives. At the time of the play's premiere in 1934, it was illegal to mention homosexuality on stage in New York State, but given how acclaimed it was by critics, they overlooked it. But when they wanted to make a film adaptation in 1936, it was still governed by the Hays Code, and so they couldn't even hint at lesbianism. So Samuel Goldwyn bought the rights to it, but when he signed Hellman on to do the screenplay, they had to change the story to be from an affair between the two teachers to one of them sleeping with the other's fiance, which is more palatable, a straight relationship. And they couldn't use the play's original title as part of the code too, so it was released as These Three was the name of it. And then by the time they wanted to remake this film in 1961, which is what we watched, the code had been liberalized a little bit more, and so they could restore the original nature of the lie back to the story. And it retained a lot more dialogue of her original play, obviously, because they could do that. Just a couple final things, too, before we jump into the plot. There's a 1996 documentary called The Celluloid Closet, and Shirley MacLaine said she and Audrey Hepburn never talked about the character's alleged homosexuality, I guess, together on set, which is interesting. And they did have to cut some scenes hinting at Martha's love for Karen because of concerns over critical reactions. The role of Mary, the lying girl, was originally offered to Haley Mills, which would have been interesting if you're not familiar with her from Parent Trap or in our era, Miss Bliss from Saved by the Bell. But she could have been Mary. And then another option for us to do a trip, the whole location is apparently still there. You can actually go and visit it in Shadow Ranch in the San Fernando Valley. So that would be a cool kind of house to go check out. Cool. So let's jump in as we'll do some rounds here. So plot summary, jumping in. Former college classmates Martha Doby and Karen Wright open a private boarding school for girls. After an engagement of 2 years to Dr. Joe Carden, Karen finally agrees to set a wedding date. Joe is a nephew of the influential Amelia Tilford, whose granddaughter Mary is a student at the school. Mary is a spoiled, conniving child who bullies her classmates. So what was your kind of vibe going into the opening? Maybe we can start with Jeremy.
Well, right away, I really was vibing with Karen's relationship with Joe. She and James Garner just seem to have, I don't know, like a very comfortable chemistry with each other. And I thought he was like a really good foil. I keep, ever since Jackie pointed out that Punisher is a character foil to Spider-Man, I keep seeing character foils everywhere. But I just loved, his sort of sarcastic nature juxtaposed with her earnestness. So in this era, right, we're led to believe that they have not been intimate because they're not married yet, and that's part of his
Desire
bubbliness to set a date, is that he really wants to get in there, right? So I do think, and I will get into this throughout the play, but I think that this is a very clever and well conceived plot, because everything kind of connects. Like Joe's frustration with never having been intimate makes the rumor about that, we'll get to later, even more frustrating for him. So yeah, I just and James Garner, I was trying to place him, and it ended up being Maverick.
Maverick was his big,
yeah, and that was a big Strauss family movie. So I was like, hey, really? Like, just handsome, likable actor, and yeah, I enjoyed that from jump.
Nice. How about Kristen? What's your, having seen it once, what was your kind of opening take?
I thought he was incredibly pushy. And then later I liked him because I was like, way to stand by your girls. And I'm like, wait, he still wants to get married and just, have his way. So I thought it was kind of self-serving on his part. But I don't know. I wasn't really paying attention in the beginning again, except it gave me like kind of bad seed vibes. So I was more focused on the little girls in the beginning than I think that the relationship, except I kind of liked when, I'm sorry, which one's which? Martha and Karen?
Karen is Audrey Hepburn.
Right, yeah. I kind of like when Karen was snappy with him, like when she's like, oh, why don't you just pay tuition if you want to eat 3 meals a day here, and stuff like that. Kind of like he was hanging out a little.
I think that was Martha.
Martha, yeah.
That was Martha. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I kind of thought she made comments like there was the tone of setting it up I want her all for myself, if you wanted to interpret it that way. But I just thought she was annoyed, kind of like, this is what we're doing. We're busy. And you just waltz in here when you want to and still friends. So, but it became an excellent, like setting the table for some rumor, when really she's just like, no, not you, you know.
Yeah.
That's how I looked at it.
Yeah. How about Jackie? What was your opening take?
Yeah, I just was like really fascinated by this setting right away as like a woman and a teacher. Like it seemed very almost like utopian to me at first, having this like house and just teaching all these girls with your like really close friend. And also at the setting, I was just like really the time period, I was just like impressed by how they had like created their life full of like them being like financially independent and like two women together like starting this business was like rare at the time, and like and how they like prioritize that. I thought there was that like initial setting up of that setting was really interesting with what was about to happen, because like they were so easily like the scapegoat, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah.
Yeah. Sarah, what was your take?
Well, I just think there's so much to love in that first sequence. Like I felt like it set up so much of the movie. I loved, like, I feel like one of the first images is the dad yawning at the recital, and I loved that moment because it was just so real. The whole piano recital sequence. I've been to a lot of piano recitals. I played piano. All my kids played piano. And like when they rushed out to take the thing off the cookies, the like cellophane off the cookies, and then just the mad rush of keeping everybody happy, and like just how these women are kind of keeping all this chaos together, right? And it's like the parents are just kind of like, why do I have to go to piano recital? You know what I mean? Like kind of oblivious to what's being provided for their kids. And also Aunt Lily, she was such a cool character, like right from the beginning. Like I was like, what is with this woman? And I thought her character was set up in that first scene because she's madly conducting the piano duet, which does not need conducting. If you've ever played piano in a duet, there's no conductor for it. They just count it off, and then the duet partners kind of look at each other for timing and listen. Like they don't have a conductor, and she's conducting poorly and frantically. So it just set up the fact that she's annoying. She inserts herself where she's not wanted, and she's always doing something that no one actually needs. And then when she's actually asked to help, she just walks away. Like when Martha asked her to help with the cookies, and she just like eats one and walks away. She just completely ignores the instruction that she's actually given. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so interested in this Aunt Lily character. So I thought it was a great opening sequence. And my impression, I was kind of on Kristen's page. I thought Dr. Hardin I loathed him in that opening scene. I just thought he was so annoying and entitled. And I love that Martha, was just like, well, why don't you pay tuition if you're going to eat all this food? And but I did end up liking him more later on just because he did stand by them. I was like, oh, he's actually like a good guy. And I really liked that I hated him at first and then ended up liking him because I thought that's what it's like with real people lots of times, you know? You can find them really annoying and then later like see more of their good qualities. So I thought that was really good.
I think it's a good note about the parents at the picnic and the yawning and just the lack of interest in what their kids are actually up to. Because like as a teacher, we know that I would sadly say the majority of parents don't really express an interest in their kids' education until they're upset about something.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. My only other note
It's
I
like
had.
they trust us until they don't. They trust us for everything all the time until like they don't. It's interesting.
I don't even know if I ever feel like they trust us. I feel like they're like fine with it. Like,
when it's convenient for them.
yeah.
When it's
like,
when we're providing a service that makes their life easier
Yeah.
in some way, you know?
My only other note is I thought Mary's performance here and generally, like both quality of acting wise and powerhouse was, I think, Wonka worthy, like Wonka kid worthy. Like she could have easily been a Veruca, which I thought was good. So I liked her energy. Okay,
Yeah.
moving on. This is like the meat and potatoes of the whole movie here. While being punished for a lie Mary told, one of her roommates overhears an argument between Martha and her Aunt Lily. Lily accuses Martha of being jealous and having an unnatural relationship with Karen. After hearing this, Mary spreads this gossip to her grandmother, and Amelia spreads it to the parents of the school. Karen learns of this and confronts Amelia about Mary accusing Martha and Karen of being lovers. Mary is foiled at convincing others she personally saw the interactions between Martha and Karen. Using her knowledge that her roommate Rosalie has stolen jewelry and other personal items from a number of people, Mary coerces Rosalie into corroborating her story. So maybe we'll start with Jeremy. What was your take on this kind of buildup?
So first of all, Mary, the little liar,
Mm-hmm.
what a performance. She was so intense. Every time the camera showed her eyes as she's looking at the other girls and just like, you better lie for me. And like that is such a thing to this day. That is such a thing, I think, at any age, is this pressure of kids lying for each other. And then also, like, as a teacher, this is kind of like your biggest fear, because even if it's found to not be true, the damage that anyone can do, but particularly what children can do to adults, it's reputational. I don't know if your summary mentioned the fact that she knew the dirty words to say because they had like a Harlequin novel
Oh,
that they were
right.
secretly
Right.
reading.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really love that detail because, I think the just assumption of like, well, this is my baby angel, and how would they know such words? They must have heard it from someone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's so absurd that like some people still talk about teachers that way, and like, oh, you're putting these ideas into my head. It's like, your kid's got a cell phone. Like, the internet is in their pocket, and you think that the 50 minute with us has more influence on them? Shut up.
I'd take.
So, well, it's just, I don't know. But it was interesting, like Jackie said, the setting, the time setting. It was such a different time, and the little house. I mean, because we were watching this, I'm like, this is a play, right? This seems like it's all could be done on one set.
Mm-hmm.
But that little boarding school really is this little like kind of bottle in the ocean, and yeah, it's a great setup. So
Yeah.
I'm fully in.
What's your take, Sarah, on that part?
Yeah, I think Mary was great. I love this scene. I hope I'm not going too far, but this scene where she's telling her grandma, I thought it was so realistic the way that it came about, because she really doesn't even know, I don't think, what she's saying. She's just trying to get the heat off herself, right? Because her grandma's like, why do you do these things? Why do you misbehave? And then she's like, well, it's because they hate me. And then she starts to add more details to just flesh out her story, to convince her grandma that she's a victim. She's really not trying to hurt the teachers. And I don't even get the sense that she even knows what she's saying, right? Like, or understands the gravity of the accusation. She's just, it's like, whatever. It's like firing a bullet and to see what you hit. You know what I mean? And then when her grandma gets interested and is like, well, what do you mean? Then she's like, oh, now I see what's going to distract her from me being in trouble. She's interested in this. And then she goes further and she goes further. And it's like, I just thought that was so realistic of how human beings lie to get the pressure off themselves, especially like young kids when they feel like they're in trouble. I was like, that was so good. That was so good, because like, as much as like Mary is like an obnoxious little kid, it was really more about her not wanting to be in trouble than it was about, at least how I interpreted it, her necessarily wanting to get them in trouble. I think they were just collateral damage to her saving her own self, which I thought was I thought that is how like a lot of these things happen, right? It doesn't have anything to do with and also there was a moment too where Mary Oh, when she fainted because she was in trouble. It was that same pathology, right? It's like, oh, I'm in trouble. What can I do to get myself out of trouble? How could I be the victim? Whatever I got to do, whatever I got to say. And I just thought, gosh, there are just so many people like that in life, you know? And what do you
Some
even
might-
do with that?
Some might say presidents of the United States. So.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
But
it's crazy.
her big victim, you know, like, oh, my heart, it's my heart that hurts, and you don't know that it doesn't hurt. And
Yeah.
like, I feel like we all have coworkers like that who are just like, how much constant pain are you? I'm not saying that doesn't exist, but wow, that's probably effed up to say. I don't know, but but there is we've all known that exaggerative person, and I don't know if any of you guys ever met like a chronic liar, like someone who lies about things they don't even need to. Like there's no benefit for them. I had a roommate whose cousin was like that, and it was maddening to be around, you know, because it was like, no, I know you didn't see Tom Cruise at Jack in the Box. Like, I know he's filming Mission Impossible 3 in Russia. Like, he's not at the Santa Clarita Jack in the Box. But like Sarah said, though, they double down and they just add more and more and more until you just give up.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the whole doctor scene, like building off of what you were saying, Sarah, you know, was just her again, just trying something, right, to detract it from else. And she found that didn't stick, which then the doctor, like her boyfriend, like hit her on the way out, like we're going, yeah, man, discipline. And I was like, ew, you know, he kind of peaked for me at that whole scene. But it did have my favorite line of the movie when Aunt Lily came down and she's like, what are you doing? Did she faint? She goes, no, I was disciplining her. And she goes, and you finally hit her.
Right, sure.
And the whole movie. And then her boyfriend comes and does that. So I just feel like she keeps trying all these different things. I would have loved to seen like some sort of like, you know, her backstory. How'd she get this way? You know, did she, you know, because I'm kind of curious, like, how did she become this person? I agree with what I think you said to Jeremy, her eyes, how intense she was, you know, just looking. I was kind of like, and she would keep eye contact, like this really strong control over other people. And then even later, and I'm jumping a little ahead, but when the other little girl comes to live with her and she's like, okay, do you want to be a part of my sorority now? You just have to do everything I say. I'm like, well, you summed it up pretty well there, you know? So I really thought that whole beginning was like, this isn't somebody you bargain with. This isn't somebody, you know, you try to sit and understand with. She has her own agenda and she'll see it done, you know. But I do agree that she didn't know the weight of her words. It was all about just, you know, keeping on top in her little world, you know, not thinking. And how often do we think at that age what impacts the adults in our lives? You know, we're like, no, I got my way, you know. So she probably had no idea. But I thought an interesting question was, if she did have an idea, would she have done it again? And I'm thinking, maybe. Yeah, she would have.
So.
Yeah, she would have.
Jackie, what was your take on this part?
Well, I like was really reminded me of like Salem witch trials, you know, like so much like the Crucible. And just as I was listening to you guys describe Mary, she's just like very manipulative, and there's so much about how she can like find power in her society, which I thought was really interesting, and how she learned that. So like she's really good at it. She's really good at manipulating at such a young age. And also like just kind of how interesting it is that Aunt Lily, the grandma, I guess like there was this like overarching like just something I was thinking about that even today is like rings true to me, is how like single women, especially in education, are like weirdly viewed as like threatening. And like that their sexuality will like somehow corrupt the children. And yeah, like unmarried women I think still are viewed as like threatening and are easily like punished. So yeah, I thought that was like eerily like similar to what I hear today too.
Welcome, Darryl. Thank you,
Darryl.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for allowing me to eat first.
Of course, thank you for coming. We'll move on from here, and I'll tag you into the rotation if you want, since you watched it, dude. Sounds like
Absolutely.
great. Let's do it. Yeah, my only final note was like, how is the lady? Is there like a anti-lesbian bat phone situation happening where she's spreading the word this fast? I guess there's like a phone tree. It's not like there's an internet at the time, but like within the day, everyone
They
had
all talked.
they're all just getting together and having a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing to me. Also, like, I'm very curious what at the time she was whispering to the grandma, what her words were. Like, I don't. It's like, how bad was it that would cause it over? It's kind of intriguing because we
It was
never
from the
hear it.
sex novel, so it was
Right,
probably
right.
pretty, pretty steamy.
Yeah,
But then
yeah.
also, like, we're gonna get to the next scene where, like, Karen and Martha finally know
Yeah.
what people are saying about them, and that's not whispered, but it's a conversation outside,
Yeah.
and we're inside. So the movie was doing a really good thing of like creating this tension of what's being said, but you haven't heard it yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're coming around to the ending here pretty soon here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I say one more thing about the scene?
Yeah.
Sarah, you're talking about how Aunt Lily like just kind of pieces out when she's needed. I thought that about the bracelet scene too, which gives Mary's control over everything. She's like, "Oh, isn't that the bracelet they lost?" And she's like, "No." Like, and she never checked on it or wondered again. She just kind of flitted down the hallway. Again, like that moment, if she had just taken an opportunity to look, and I'm not saying everybody would have, but it was just another example of her going, "Oh, children should be seen, not heard." Bye.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which did
totally.
make me think of Arrested Development and Buster. Remember, I'll be neither seen nor heard. And Buster's like in the back of the house. Like,
You can always tell a Milton man.
That's right.
that's right. That's the
Okay, next scene. The two women file a suit of libel and slander against Amelia. A few months later, Martha and Karen are isolated at the school, having lost all their students and ruined their reputations after losing the lawsuit. Karen calls off her engagement with Joe when he asks her if what was said about Martha and her was true. When she finds out, Martha points out that other female couples have persevered after being discovered because of the strength of their love, then admits she's been in love with Karen for years. Karen says that Martha is just confused about her feelings, but Martha insists it is love, breaking down in tears. How about Jackie? I'll open with you. What was your take on the big confrontation?
Yeah, I mean, it was just so tragic on so many levels, like seeing what all that they've built at that time just be taken away from them, and how fragile their reputations were. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think as teachers, it's really hard because we pour so much of ourselves into our students, and then thinking we could just do, I don't know, not even something unnatural, like I said, but like that it would take all of that away from you it was just really tragic to me, and it made me wonder about how education, being this like female dominated field, if just that makes it inherently like the reputation of teachers so easily able to like disintegrate or be diminished.
Yeah. Sarah, what was your take on this part?
I actually, I don't know if anyone else had this read, and it could be because of the version of the play was a little bit different that I saw in high school. My impression was Karen was actually in love with Martha too.
That was one of my questions.
Sent Joe away, or was his name Joe? Joe Carden?
Mm-hmm.
The doctor?
I think so. Yeah.
She sent him away to me to get rid of him. And then she was like, Martha, like, I'm going to start over a new life. Come with me. I kind of felt like Karen was like leaning into it as well. Like, or maybe realized something or just realized that even if it wasn't necessarily sexual, maybe that Karen is her most important person in her life. I kind of thought that's where she was at the end. And so I thought that made it even more tragic that they couldn't really like connect the dots and connect together. Cause I thought, oh, that would have been such kind of a sweet love story, even if it started with this horrible rumor and all this horrible stuff, it's like maybe that's what they needed to actually like realize, you know what I mean, what they meant to each other. But I mean, that was such a hard life at that time. So it's also like, I don't know, you know, I don't know how easy that would have been for them, you know, or if like that reputation would have like followed them. But I just thought the whole thing was just so sad, because I just thought, oh, like what it must have been like to actually to be, you know, gay back then must have been, and that wasn't that long ago, you know. So I just thought that was just really, really, really sad.
Yeah. Jeremy, what was your take?
I also thought it was interesting Karen's sort of rejection of Joe, even as he's trying to be there for her. Because the reasoning she gives for sending him away is a little nebulous. It's like, well, you'll always wonder, and I'll never get over the fact that you wondered.
Right.
So I almost read it as like they needed to go take a break, you know, or whatever the phrase was from Friends. But that way he could come back and choose her if that's what he actually wants. Like we need this distance apart so that you can wander if that's what you actually want to do. This is basically the meat of the movie, though, is this long interrogation of the little girl. It's like almost like a 20-minute scene where she's claiming she watched through a peephole or a keyhole that doesn't, you know, actually exist. And I don't know, it was a very slow burn to this moment of Martha admitting that her attraction is real. And I was like, well, that's got to be, because where else does this story go? That's the only logical next point of tension. But still, though, I think for as simple as the story is, it's very tense. It feels very raw. A couple days ago, Sarah and Jackie and I watched Spider-Man 3 with all the Spider-Men, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, and all the spells and the sand monster and the lizard guy, and like, you know, that movie cost $900 million to make or whatever, and I was like, this was more engaging to me. So I don't know if it's douchey to say, but just the power of a really well-crafted story, I think is something I appreciated while watching this.
Nice. Darryl, any thoughts on this big confrontation part?
Yeah, well, it's funny because if I really say my thoughts, it'll be like I'm just repeating everything Sarah said because I felt literally the exact same way, even down to both women having the same feelings for one another. One woman was just brave enough to say it, while the other woman looked like she was, I'm sorry, forgetting their names, but she looked like she was thinking to herself, can I get this out? And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if I'm reading into this, because being that it's such an old movie, I couldn't even believe that the subject matter was even being discussed. So it took that moment for me to really realize that they're even taking it further than I had anticipated. But then my brain started going back, and I didn't know that this was an adaptation from something else. Now I want to get into the etymology. I might go back and look, because my brain says there was something much deeper with that aunt, because her niece's resistance to her was irrational, and there was no man involved. She didn't like her from the beginning. We don't know why. I mean, she hated her. She was mean to her from the beginning. We don't even know how they got into that situation. And her disappearance and refusal to come back during the trial seemed to be deeper than just, oh, I don't want to get involved in that. It seemed to me that it was more personal to her. And it makes me wonder whether or not literally something else happened, either between them, or she knew about it and understood. I don't know what happened to her mother. Like, my brain just went into every direction, but it had a lot to do with that aunt. And I'm wondering whether or not, now that I know that there was a play and I guess maybe a screen or written or something, I just want to go look and see whether or not I can find something on that, because I think that there's something there.
Yeah, that's cool. I agree with you. I definitely felt like Karen is the one who was kind of more, in theory, repressed. If you agree that she was also attracted to Martha, I feel like there was a spectrum where Martha was further along and Karen was close behind, but hadn't quite jumped there. That was my take on it for sure. Any thoughts, Kristen? Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, please.
Sure.
Sorry. I was just gonna say that I think Aunt Lily, because remember in the beginning, she was saying, you're 27 and you're running the school, basically implying that she hadn't followed the next natural steps in society.
Yeah, she even used the word unnatural. She kept using the word. Yeah.
And I thought back then she was talking more about where you're at in life in general, and maybe just used something to bolster her own case, just used words flippantly. I wasn't sure, but she did seem to have something that was just a little bit more than why don't you like your niece, even though she didn't live a very conventional life either, the aunt. So I don't know, doing theater or whatever she's doing. So I wasn't really sure what to think about that. I did wonder if Karen really developed, realized that she loved her too, or I thought if it's not that, maybe just a rejection of going to what the next natural step is, right? Because they're like, you've been running this school, you need to get married, and like Jackie said in the chat earlier, is that why that she's delaying her marriage, right? And she wants to continue to do this, whether there's a romantic tie to it or not. I thought that issue alone made me wonder, do you even want to get married to this man, or do you just kind of he has a really gross line earlier on that just made me gag, but when he comes over to look at Mary when she's pretending to be sick, she's like, leaving so soon? He goes, not until I get my payment. And then they go outside and he kisses her. And I was like, oh, sick, come on. But it's she just had to pacify him to get him out. But I thought that was such a gross part. And even when she asked him the question, it's there's really no way. She kind of made him say, did you, ask the question when she's forcing that. And I thought, I don't know. You kind of just led him right to what you wanted to, and then said, well, I could never get over, knowing. So, this way I can send him away and I don't have to deal with any other real feeling or not. That might be the reason why he's just out of the picture, because then she does come around to saying, okay, Martha, let's go someplace. And Martha had kind of I felt had, even though maybe she hadn't expressed that she thought it before, she had wondered maybe before, because she talked about, hey, there's actually lives that exist where people choose this and they live very happy lives. I think she's just trying to paint what we've been told doesn't have to be the reality. There could be another way. I thought she did a good job of explaining that. And just Mary was, I don't know, she just felt on the path that society let off for her, and she didn't know what to deviate with it, and how to deviate from it until it was too late. I don't know. It was very sad.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is too pro baby it's cold outside, but I read the I want my payment as cute, because I think she wanted to kiss him back. And I think that was their little thing where whenever he visits, he's like, oh, I need my payment. And they step outside and they have a little smooch. But again, pro Joe though. I think Joe,
but
Joe's a solid dude.
Joe did something creepy at the beginning of the movie. He came in and when the two women were about to go for a walk, he said, I don't have enough energy for both of you. And I literally, I said, no, he can't mean, because I didn't know where the direction of the movie was going. But now when I look back at the whole thing, that was a pretty, what else could he have meant?
Yeah. Also, didn't Joe randomly spank the girl when he walked out of the room?
Yes, that was creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was wild. Okay, final part, and then we can wrap this up. Rosalie's mother finds a collection of stolen items her daughter has kept, leading to the revelation of Mary's lie about Martha and Karen. Amelia tells the judge, who will overturn the outcome of the lawsuit, publish the results in the newspaper, and a full financial settlement will be paid to the teachers. Karen tells Martha they are still friends and they can work again. Aunt Lily asks Karen about Martha's whereabouts as her door is locked. Karen breaks loose the door's sliding lock with a candle holder and discovers Martha has hanged herself in her room. Karen attends Martha's funeral and silently walks away as Joe, Amelia, and several other townspeople watch her. Jackie, what was your take on the ending?
Well, going back to Joe, I think it is interesting. He had a more contrasting portrayal, because for the time period, him defending them
Mm-hmm.
and like standing up for them was actually a really rare
Yeah.
thing to do. I'm not like excusing his other behavior, but I just think he's like complex. And he loses his job for it and still stands behind his decision. I think like this is like such an important movie. Like I don't even know a movie that portrays like queer women this way and shows the consequences of like the real world consequences of what happens if we live in a culture that doesn't allow like people to live as who they truly are, especially for the time period. I mean, it just feels very revolutionary to me. And then I thought like Karen leaving alone, like I thought that was like a statement about her like living her truth. Like I thought by the end, I thought like, oh, she's like living as like a queer woman. Like that's like, and I thought that was like a powerful ending. But I might be wrong. I'm curious what the play portrays her as.
Yeah. Interesting. How about Jeremy? What was your take on the ending?
I think we're meant to speculate. I think that was my read too, because the movie zooms in on her face looking to the horizon as she's walking away from everything that she's known in the play. Joe is there and doesn't say a word to her. The whole town watches. It's like maybe the metaphor is a bit cornball, but it's like it's her coming out story. She's going out into the world and she's gonna, I think that Karen was getting there. I think she was going to try out, being with Martha if she had only waited. Martha as a character, I felt like was really compelling. Her speech to Karen about, did the little girl sense something? Is there something about children that they see something in us that we didn't even really know was there? That was very moving, very depressing. And the ending hit really hard. Jackie and I, back in February, lost a friend who was in the LGBTQ community to suicide, and we don't know why she did that. All we know is that she struggled with horrific depression, and the world's lack of acceptance always weighed on her because she was trans, and that's what makes me so mad about things like my district being like, oh, you can only have the California and the USA flag. And these teachers who have like celebrated their identity through a flag on the wall that lets other kids know like, hey, it's okay to be yourself in this room. Well, they're supposed to take that down now. And like, I just think there's such harm. There's such genuine harm in creating environments where people feel like they have to hide their true nature. I think it's poisonous. And yeah, so just really, really deeply upsetting. I had another thing to say, but I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
It's just, oh, I remember what it was. The whole movie, because the movie's so old, I'm like, is this sympathetic to gay people and gay women, right? Or is the tension like, oh my God, I hope they're not actually gay? And I was really afraid for that other shoe to drop, and Martha would come out and Karen would be like, oh, you disgust me or whatever. And it's like, see, it could happen to you. Your friend might be gay. Look out, but then by the end, I was like, okay, this play actually understands just how tragic it is that people are suffering for no freaking reason.
Yeah. Sarah, what was your take on the ending?
Well, I mean, I agree with everything that's already been said. And I was almost like tearing up thinking about teachers taking the flags down. Just because, like, I don't know, you said it so well. I was like, that's so true. But I thought that like one of the most revolutionary things was the actual apology from the grandma. I was like, I feel like that would not happen nowadays. I feel like she would have doubled down in her little false world. I think she would have hidden the evidence. I don't even think that mom would have brought up that her daughter had stolen all that stuff. I think that mom nowadays would have just swept that stuff under the rug and been like, well, no, I don't want to ruin my daughter's life with these accusations that are true, or have her face any accountability for her actions. Maybe I just have a really dark view of parents nowadays, but like, I just don't see that level of accountability taken by anyone now. Like, I just kept thinking like the most unrealistic part of this movie is actually that anyone came and apologized to them at the end. I'm serious. Like, honestly, I mean, maybe I'm just too dark right now, my headspace about the world, but I mean, I thought that grandma's apology was like very, very sincere. I think she actually felt bad. And I don't think she would likely get that nowadays. Like, I think everyone's just so wrapped up in their own narrative of the world, and they can get ChatGPT to tell them they're right, or they can get, someone online to tell them that they're right. Like, I think that they would maybe experience like a second worry, like, oh my gosh, what if I'm wrong? And then immediately go and find people to tell them they're not wrong so that they could feel better, and then double down on their story. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Darryl, what was your take on the end?
I thought that she was reclaiming her power, or maybe stepping into her power when she walked out at the very end. And of course, we don't know what she was thinking, and she just walks off into the distance. But prior to that, when the grandma came to apologize, I was so annoyed that they didn't take that money. Because I'm guessing she may have still been able to kind of get it to them, but their reaction, they lost everything. And I just kept thinking, you've already lost the case. You're not really going to be able to probably work again, at least not in that area, because people, they don't come back to you after. The society wasn't going to say, oh, we were wrong. That part probably was never going to happen. Mm-hmm. So reparations are in order here in order to just live and survive. So I was annoyed by their principled stance of telling her that, like, we don't care or want your money. And so that's where my brain was, especially when she was leaving. I'm thinking, did she actually get the money? Is she going to be able to survive? Is she going to be able to live? I mean, they had only ever been in the black one month for $90. So like, unless they had some savings someplace else, then they really needed that. And so that's what I first wondered about, like, how is she going to survive now?
Yeah, no, totally.
And it made me think of how poorly teachers are paid. And like, I mean, Jackie and I are plenty happy, but there's times we're living paycheck to paycheck, and it's like teachers don't have much, and people are so quick to want to take everything from them. Sure. It's just this movie feels very old, and also right now.
So fresh.
Keep happening.
Yeah. Kristen, what was your thoughts in the end?
Well, I hadn't thought about the money part too much, but now you got me thinking about it. I don't know if it's just too soon, that if, her in 5 years would have taken the money, but then if she wanted nothing to do with it, anything she built or did with that money, it would be like, she would remember it, I don't know if she put an emotional meaning onto it. But I bet she would want it in like a year or 2 or 3 or 4, depending on what she does. So I really, really liked Audrey Hepburn's face when she walks in and sees her. I thought that was really, really done well. They focus low at first, her eyes do, and that's all we see too, right? And then when her face comes up, that shot, I thought it was so beautiful and so well acted for just a look by Audrey Hepburn. I really, really liked that part. And then at the end, I don't know, again, is she walking into her new life as a queer person, or is she just walking away from that life. Either way, she's walking away, right, into
Mhm.
something else. And, again, I'm not sure she ever wanted to marry Joe or follow any of these paths. I'm not sure what happened wrecked her dream. It definitely was a hard time, but I'm not convinced she ever wanted to go that route anyway, So in a strange way, this might have liberated her at a very, very, very terrible cost,
Sure.
liberated her and also given her a lifelong, heartbreak over it. So I don't know. And I loved how, I don't know if this was just something I noticed and made something way, way bigger into it, than it was. But when she went and banged open the lock to the room, it was with their little trophy. And I thought, oh, that's just such a great little symbol of taking a trophy, this element of success and winning and everything like that. And that's used to discover the biggest tragedy of her life, And I just felt like that was symbolism for the whole. What I kept getting from it was everything you're told to want out of life is just crumbling, or this life that you thought you set up. So I like that the trophy was used to that. I just thought that was a neat scene.
Yeah,
I
think
couldn't
about
tell
that.
what it was. I tried to zoom in on it, but
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I thought I think it's like the opposite of your Audrey Hepburn reaction shot, which was great, which was the shot of the actual hanged woman, which was super subtle, and it was just an overturned chair, and then in the background, the shadow of light feet swinging, which I thought was nothing really stood out to me as visually innovative. It was beautifully shot, but that shot was very intentional. Oh, this is a shot, and it was really cool.
Yeah. I also was thinking, oh yeah, go Darryl.
How did you all watch this? Because I watched it on YouTube and I did not see that. In fact,
Oh,
I
really?
thought I would, I thought I saw the scene where they burst in the door, but I knew that she had died, but I didn't know she hanged herself until you said it. So
Yeah.
did you all watch it on YouTube?
I was on, actually, there's the library service called Canopy. You can connect to your local library and stream. It had it on there. That's where we saw it. So yeah.
I watched on
Maybe
YouTube.
And you saw?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go back.
It was really subtle though too. So he may have
And again, her amazing face during the scene could be a distraction. But yeah, it was because she looks down at first, and right before that, before she gets in the room, I think they show a picture of something that led you to believe you knew what you were walking into. I don't know.
You saw the rope.
Yeah, the rope. Thank you. I knew there was something before she even gets in the room. And then her eyes draw you to look down too. When she first comes in, her eyes draw down. And before we even see that scene you're talking about, it's then she looks up, and it's a really long, it's probably 10 seconds, but it felt really long to me. And then you go back down there and you see where her eyes initially were. And it's just that
I gotta
shot.
go back and look at it. I missed.
Yeah.
Well, you might not have missed it. I would fully believe that YouTube, someone to upload it might have cut out the actual suicidal imagery. You know what I mean? I don't know what the rules are.
Because there were a couple versions on YouTube.
Yeah. And I'd like to think that this might be what finally gets Mary to stop being the way she is, because she's just this irredeemable character. But it's such a small town. She's gonna hear about that woman you and she knows she ruined their lives. It's the talk of the town. The whole school closes down. She knows her stupid lie destroyed this woman, and now she's gone. I would like to think that would lead to I don't know, a re-examination of conscience. I choose to think that.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay, let's bring it to a close here. We for Darryl is new to this. We just typically do best and worst part of the movie, or favorite and least favorite thing. Let's just do a quick round. Sarah, what was your favorite and least favorite?
Favorite was probably Aunt Lily. I just thought she was such an interesting character, and I think it was Darryl that said maybe there's something more going on with her. I kind of had that same thought, especially because she's in the theater. I was like, well, is Aunt Lily maybe gay herself? I don't know. She's an older single woman. She's in the theater. I don't know. I just thought she was a really interesting character. I kind of liked her and hated her in equal measure. I really thought the actress played her really, really well. And I just really enjoyed her. Actually, all the acting was really stand out. I think the script was really good. I think the worst part for me is that I and this is no fault of the movie, the script, or anything. I know it was because of the code and because of what you couldn't show at the time. I think what would have made it a lot better, like I'd love to see somebody do this movie now, but still set it at the time, because you want to show that the struggles that people went through back then. Like, I think it's vital to keep it set in that time period, not like update it for today, but do it today so that we could get a more, I would like to see an ending of the two women really wrestling with their feelings in a way that you couldn't really do when they had to sort of obliquely refer to sexuality and, you know, lesbian relationships. But I think that scene could have really emotionally wrecked me if they had been able to communicate a little more. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Be a little bit more explicit. And I'm not saying like ridiculously explicit, but just more like honest. But I still want there to be that miscommunication that kind of keeps them apart, like that they're dealing with it in a different way or like processing in a different way, because that's part of the tragedy of the ending. Like, I'm not saying change that, but I just thought it suffered a little bit by that vagueness in that part, because I feel like that's the ending. That's when all the masks need to come off and everyone needs to be dead honest with each other. Do you know what I mean? And I kind of miss that we never got like that moment.
Yeah. Jeremy, what was your take?
Best and worst, you mean?
Yeah.
Best, as devastating as it is, I think the discovery of Martha's body is probably the best scene, because without that plot point, you know, I don't even know if there's I mean, obviously there's a story, but the loss of her is the point that I think the movie's making. And like you guys said, I think the acting is good. The way the shot is really chilling. They do so much with so little in that scene. Worst scene, I would say, was probably the interrogating Mary and the whole keyhole thing. Like, that scene, I don't know if you guys, it goes on and on and on, and it's like, and the movie felt long, even though the story on, like, I mean, what is it, 3 paragraphs on Wikipedia? Like, you know, it's a very tight story, so I feel like a little brevity would have made it a bit more impactful when you get to that ending. So yeah, that's a little cut here and there.
There you go. How about Kristen? What was your best and worst?
Oh, I didn't come prepared, so I'll just have to give you the worst. I can't think of a worst scene, except when again, it goes back to Joe and how much I didn't like him in the beginning when they're in the car and he's such a baby. She's like, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? Do you want to get a beer? I hate beer. Like, it's like, I just thought that again kind of set the table for the whole, you know, she's desperately trying to cater to what he wants to do. So I just didn't like that scene because it was Joe. But I really liked all of the faces, and even like I talked about in the previous scene, Audrey Hepburn, but even the lady who played the grandma, when she learns that her precious little grandbaby, you know, they again, you know, just that kind of old-fashioned style at the time. I don't know the right terms for it, but they just zoom in on her shocked face, and she's shocked and like shaking, her little jowls are shaking, you know, going forward with that. I really, really just kind of, I enjoy that sort of drama, but I agree that the ending scene, I think, was the most impactful emotionally part. I almost did wonder too if, like, because through all of this, you know, regardless, even if they had you know, ended up together, right, and she had lived and they ended up together or something, it still shows society's response to the fact that they weren't just could have a relationship, right? That's what would happen. And I just thought it had such a, it's kind of like that whole theme is kind of just not overshadowed, but just like downplayed a little bit by the tragedy at the end, but also like deserving of discussion. Like, so what if they were? And that's why it'd be interesting to, like, I love watching it now versus then, because you think like, oh, we don't have those problems anymore, and we still do. And I thought, gosh, I wonder if anybody walked away from this movie going, I can't come out because it's too difficult. Look what they'll do to me. Like, if it actually acted as a deterrent instead of a support in its time. Because I thought for myself, I'd probably be like, nope, I'm not saying anything after watching this. You know, I thought it would be very hard to watch if you're in the LGBT community. So back then, we're not.
Yeah. Darryl, what was your take on best and worst?
So I had to think about this. I'm glad you didn't come to me first.
Sure.
My favorite part was probably the beginning, because I like that opening scene where they're doing the music, because I didn't know what to expect. I read the what the synopsis that told me nothing. And so I didn't know that this was going to be such a deep, dark movie. I thought, oh, this might be a light, cute little film. And so the opening scene really led me down a road that was going to detour me all the way later. I thought this movie was excellent. Like, I'm a person who loves old movies and I love black and white movies, and this may have re-sparked my desire to go back and start watching some. So this was a really good movie, and I didn't have any worst parts of the movie from the standpoint of the storyline or the acting or anything like that. So the only thing that I can come up with as far as my least favorite part was a part that really creeped me out. And that is when the milkman came in from the back door. And clearly he knew, he always comes in there, but now he knows that he's dealing with a couple of lesbians. And the way he now comes out and looks at them, almost licking his lips before he walks out of the door, was so vile and disgusting.
Talk about that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So disgusting. And so I disliked that part the most.
Yeah. Yeah, Sarah like gasped at that part too out loud. Yeah.
It was so gross.
So
Thank you for bringing that up. I can't believe we forgot to talk about that.
Yeah.
That was disturbing.
Yeah.
Very
I
disturbing.
didn't even think about that. That may be moved to the top of my worst. I also the random spanking from the doctor was on my list too. The spanking of the girl. But yeah, my best for me would be how real the ending was too. Just like that, not only that it was tragic and like what likely would have happened, but also ambiguous as to where she's going next. The other woman, like, is she going to continue this path? Is she going to go the other way? I just like that it's left open. Jackie, what was your, to bring us to a close, best and worst?
I guess my favorite part immediately was the characterization of Karen and Martha as like teachers that are like whole human beings. Like, I've never seen that in a movie. Like, they're often these like perfect nurturers or like super inspirational, sacrificial. And immediately I just like related to them. Like, oh, these are, for the time, portraying these like teachers as real human beings with flaws, and like they weren't even like perfect teachers, you know, like they were just like real people, because perfect teachers don't exist. And I liked that portrayal. And then I agree with Sarah about the vagueness. Like, I think it is such a product of its time, and there were laws literally prohibiting them from like saying what needed to be said, but that ultimately took away from like the emotional resonance for me that it could have had even more. So
Yeah, that's fair.
Oh, and
Before we
also
get
like going with the scene about that milkman person, I think like I totally was disturbing, but I think really powerful, because I think even now like lesbian women are, they're like, oh, you're punished, you're deviants, or like, but also with that you're also being like sexualized, and it's like,
Yep.
that's really interesting to me that both occur simultaneously.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure. Before we get to our ratings, and Jeremy will explain the rating scale, just a few more kind of pieces of feedback quotes from the time, and nowadays. Currently on Rotten Tomatoes, this film holds an approval rating of 78%, so relatively high. At the time, Bosley Crowther of the New York Times was not a fan. He said, in short, there are several glaring holes in the fabric of this plot. And obviously, Miss Hellman, who did the adaptation, and John Michael Hayes, who wrote the script, knew they were there, and they've plainly sidestepped the biggest of them. James Garner as the fiance of Miss Hepburn and Miriam Hopkins as the aunt of Miss McLean give performances with such artificial laboring that Mr. Weiler should hang his head in shame. Indeed, there is nothing about this picture which he can be very proud. It's pretty scathing. On the other side, Variety said Audrey Hepburn and Shirley MacLaine are beautifully complement each other. Hepburn's soft sensitivity, marvelous projection, and emotional understatement result in a memorable portrayal. MacLane's enactment is almost equally rich in depth and substance. Interestingly, too, Weiler is the most remains the most decorated film director in Academy Awards history with 12 nominations, and he holds the record for longest streak with 4 consecutive Best Director nominations between 1931 and 1942. He won the Academy Award for Best Director 3 times for Miss Miniver, The Best Years of Our Lives, and Ben-Hur, probably the most well-known, I guess, of his. And then I was going to ask, too, what your thoughts were on why it's called the Children's Hour. If anyone wants to take a guess or have your thoughts on before we get the answer. I don't, Sarah, any thoughts on that? She's like, no.
No, I was thinking of like the children's hour at the library is like story time, maybe. Like that was kind of where I was going, and like it is kind of like a story, and so that would be my only guess.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the Longfellow poem, Kyle?
Yeah, that gets mentioned too. But
Yeah.
if you want to say something about that, Jeremy, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I was just, while you guys were talking, I Googled it, and I was like, well, where does that phrase come from? And I guess 1860, he wrote a poem that refers to the hour when a parent comes home from work, but it's not dark yet, so they like spend time with their children, and that's like
It's
the
like the magic time
hour.
of connection. Yeah.
Oh.
And it's
Right.
like, whereas in this movie, it's the children's hour becomes the moment when a child's words cause adult ruin. So it's flipping that idea. The children's hour is destructive in this case.
Yeah.
And then finally, between the two people that I certainly knew before this, other than Audrey Hepburn and Sarah too, Veronica Cartwright, who plays Rosalie, said in an interview, she and the other children were told not to hang around with Shirley MacLaine on set because she cursed a lot. They all did, however. They thought she was cool and very generous. She also became Cartwright's mentor throughout the making of the film, which I think is kind of cool. So let's bring it home. Jeremy, will you tell us about the Strauss scale, which is how we rate these movies?
I'd love to. Born from COVID movie nights with my family. You rate it out of 10. If you don't regret watching it, it starts at a 5 and you go from there. So, I definitely think this movie is really important. I would love to see, I'd actually love to see a modern retelling and maybe change what the accusation is, but, set it in the social media smartphone era. I think that could actually be really compelling, and start good conversation. So, it's one of those movies that does feel a little weird because it's like, I'm tempted to take off points because I wasn't really entertained, but that's not really what it was trying to do. But my heart says a 7. I think it's a good movie. I think people should see it. I just don't know if I'll ever watch it again. So I'm going to go 7 out of 10.
Nice. All right. How about Jackie?
I would give an 8. Like I agree with Jeremy that it's very important. Like people should watch it, but I don't know if it's like it's revolutionary for the time, but is the message like universal and transcendent enough to maintain its importance now? I think so. I just think there could be also more like powerful films as well.
Mm-hmm. Darryl, what's your take?
My first time doing this, and so I just got to go with how I feel, and that's like a 9, just because I enjoyed this movie so much. This movie is making me want to watch other old movies and black and white movies I used to see, and just say, what else did they cover that I just didn't know they covered back then?
Yeah,
I just did not think these things were on the agenda to be spoken about, and so maybe it's because of the respark that it's gotten in me, but I'm giving it a 9.
Nice. Love it. How about Kristen?
Just pure enjoyability, 7, I liked it. But I would say that it went up to a 9 after YouTube showed me the little behind the scenes thing, and I started reading more about it because I just, again, for its time and the effort that people had to take, even when the movie was started to be released in theaters in different places, and cities would try to ban it in certain sections, and just the fight to get people to watch it in its original, just purely because of the subject matter, I thought was pretty impressive. So I guess, adjusting for the time that it was written, I just thought it was 9 for really being quite brave, and despite so many obstacles and battles. And they said that the times on set were insane, and Audrey Hepburn wondered later if this had wrecked her career because she was very well known and very famous, so there there was a lot of personally at stake for a lot of people involved in it, and it went forward and somehow got produced despite all these efforts to shut it down and keep it down. So I really enjoyed that. So I changed it to a 9 after YouTube showed me that.
Nice. All right, Sarah, what's your take?
Well, I also landed on an 8. I think if the movie had continued with the energy it had at the beginning, it would be like a 9 all the way through. But I felt like kind of the end, it just didn't quite hang together for me. And I think, again, it was because I get that the movie is about false accusations, but really it's about true accusations in my mind. So I guess I wanted to see that more as a through line, I think. I wanted more from the relationship between the women. Again, I mean, I kind of already mentioned that. Like, I wanted them to be just a little bit more explicit at the end with their feelings. And I think that just took away some of the energy, if that makes sense, of the end of the movie. Like, I wanted to be on this rocket ship that just kept going up. Like, I just feel like it started with all this energy and I was so interested in the girls, and then I just felt like it kind of went like this instead of taking me all the way, like, more. I wanted a more explosive confrontation kind of between the women, or not explosive but be passionate. I don't know. I'm not sure what I wanted, but I feel like, yes, I would love to see another version of this movie without the code and all that. Yeah.
Maybe starring The Rock as both.
Maybe The Rock Johnson as Dr. Carden. I don't know.
You could say. I agree with you, though. I think I also give it an 8, largely just because it's like I feel like if they could have gone deeper emotionally and you connected with it more, then it would be like, whoa, this rocks me. But it's like a little bit more clinical because they can't go that far. But like super well made, super important, I think.
You
Awesome.
said that better than I said. Good job.
No big deal. No big deal. Cool. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Darryl, for coming for the first time as well. If there's anywhere, if you want to, maybe you can start, Darryl. We usually, if you want to plug anything where you are online, feel free to. If not, don't have to. But if you have somewhere to let people know, you're good. You're free. How about Jackie? I know you've got a new essay out.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. You can look at my writing. It's Jacqueline Francis.
Nice. Sarah, or I know Kristen's going to say no, but Sarah probably no as well. Nice.
Nothing to plug here.
Cool. Jeremy, I know what you're going to say. Go for it.
Yeah, www.theoldswitcharoo.com. I do a podcast about retro video games. Jackie and Sarah and Kyle have been on talking about Mario Party. And Kyle's been on a couple other times, but it's a good time. So Darryl, Kristen, if you guys want to come talk about old video games, we'd love to have you in a future season. So thank you, Kyle. This was a good discussion and an important movie. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great. And thank you all for coming. We actually know our next few ones. We're going to be talking about The Big Lebowski next time. So if you're a fan, as I am, as most people are,
I need that one.
That's right.
Everyone likes it. I just don't get the hype. I saw it one time in my whole life, and I've never seen it since. So I've been meaning to watch it again. I feel like I'm left out of a club,
There we go. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you all for coming. I'll talk to you all later.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.